All right. Welcome to everyone out there on the internet tonight and also listening on WTWW, shortwave on 5085. My name is Tom Medlin, W5KUB. And tonight, Ted Randall is not with us, but our chief engineer, David Klimkowski, KG4WXW, is with us tonight. And he's going to be helping us to control everything. I think he's got the shortwave going there. So just a couple announcements. First of all, we've got Dr. Robert Schmieder with us tonight. He is going to talk about the Heard Island DXpedition. He's also a scientist, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. We might even get into global warming. Who knows? So that's going to be an interesting conversation there with Bob. Bob is the founder and the expedition leader of Cordell Expeditions, and it's a nonprofit research group that was started in 1977. And they're responsible for the creation of the Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary and for numerous research expeditions to remote oceanic sites. Professionally, Bob is a research physicist. He's got about 100 publications and 4 patents. He's been a ham since 1962, and his specialty is very difficult DXpeditions. He's been on many DXpeditions, and we're going to get into some of those in just a few minutes. He's also invented, I think, some of the logging software, the real-time logging software that we'll get into that some of these DXpeditions are using. He was also listed in the CQ Amateur Radio Hall of Fame. Let's just go straight to Dr. Bob there, and let's just bring him right in.
Mr. Tom?
Here we go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I need to quickly say this is WTWW, Lebanon, Tennessee, the United States of America. I have to do that legal ID for the transmitter.
Very good. You can do that as much as you need to, okay? Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
And, okay, hey, Bob. Welcome, Bob. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing just fine. Thank you very much. Boy, this is a real pleasure to connect with you and have the chance to talk with you about things of mutual interest.
Well, you know, I met Bob in Dayton this year. He was up there, and we talked a little about the Heard Island DXpedition, and that kind of thing is so exciting for me that we decided to get together more often and try to keep each other updated about this. In fact, we're going to try during the DXpedition, we're going to try to bring in video updates directly from Heard Island. And I keep telling Bob, I want to see a bunch of penguins standing around him. Bob, you told me though there's some kind of law against bothering the animals. What's going on down here?
Well, Heard Island has the world's largest colony of king penguins. It pushes almost to 1 million penguins, and as is the case in many places in the world now, there are rules about interacting with wildlife, especially the large wildlife like elephant seals and, of course, land animals like elephants and tigers and things. That's true about the penguins on Heard Island and other places that are similar. You are not supposed to, in fact, it's the law that you can't come closer than a certain distance without some special kind of permit. And we are there not to, really interact with the penguins. So we're probably going to be very polite and stand the required distance away from them. But fortunately, cameras are able to, bridge that kind of a distance. So we'll get a lot of close-up images of penguins, and boy, there are a lot of them.
Well, that's going to be cool, man, to watch the penguins there with you guys. And the expedition is going to be, I think, in March, so you still got time to get that permit. Maybe you, as a scientist, can at least say you'd like to pet one of the penguins, or is that going to cost a lot of money?
The permit doesn't cost anything. It's issued by the Australian government through an agency called the Australian Antarctic Division. We just say AAD. Their office is in Hobart, in Kingston, Tasmania. And I've been there twice now, visiting them, setting this up. The permit will be for landing and to carry out the program that we're proposing to do, which includes the radio operation and certain scientific projects. It does not include any specific projects to interact with the megafauna like the penguins and the elephant seals and the seabirds. We're going to stay away from them and just document them from a distance. One thing we might be able to do, and we're working on it, is have a drone or drones so that we could fly over and get an images of the whole population there, sort of a penguin count, if you like. We can do that without interacting with them and without violating any rules. So we'll be learning a lot about the penguins and the elephant seals, in spite of there being no formal program. We're not going to take blood samples or put collars on them and track them or anything like that. That's not part of this project. Okay.
Well, hey, that's a great idea. I think the drone is really going to get some great pictures for you guys there. You think you'll be able to fly it? How high is the volcano there? It's pretty tall, isn't it?
The volcano is 9,000 feet to the peak, above sea level. It's just a titanic volcano, and it's active. In fact, it was erupting most recently in June of this year. So now it's not an eruption like Mount Vesuvius. It's just some smoke and fumes and a little bit of lava and things like that. But it is seismically active, volcanically active, and because of that, it's really interesting. But it's 9,000 feet high. It's not something that you can climb informally. It was first climbed in 1965. It's been summited only 3 times. We don't have the manpower to put a climbing team in the field, and so we're just going to be happy with taking pictures of it when it's clear enough to see it from the lower camps in the areas that we will be. But unfortunately, we won't be able to get up there, and we probably can't fly a drone up there. So satellite images are pretty darn good, though, these days. And working together with those, we'll probably have a pretty good idea of what's happening right at the top.
Wow, I didn't realize it's 9,000 feet tall. That's your drone probably wouldn't operate too well up there.
That's
I was thinking. It may be a little warmer up there, though, if you kind of get a little heat area. What's the weather going to be like when you guys are there?
Well, it'll be colder up there because it's windy. If there's anything about Heard Island's weather, it's wind. There is wind constantly. It's at 53 degrees south latitude, and as almost everybody knows, if you look at the South Pole from space, the winds and therefore the currents, the oceanic currents, circulate clockwise around the South Pole. And they just go continuously. And there's no land to stop them. And that's why the wind and the seas are just ferocious. In fact, they have names, the Furious 40s and so on. So on Heard Island, it's windy. It's usually foggy. It'll rain a lot. It'll be cold, but it won't be freezing. It'll be above freezing, maybe between 2, 3, 4 degrees above 0 centigrade, or above freezing. So it'll be wet, sloppy, muddy, rainy, foggy, cold, and windy. Sounds a little like Seattle.
So this sounds like a great vacation spot to be going on here. What makes you guys want to go to a wet, cold, smoggy, damp place?
Well, it's the universal attraction to things that we don't know anything about. Now, we do know a lot about Heard Island, but people, exploration is intrinsic, I think, in our genetics. And Heard Island is very far away, very remote, very difficult to get to. That translates into very expensive in terms of dollars and in terms of time and in terms of risk. Because of all that, Heard Island is very poorly characterized or described. The plants and animals that live there are more or less described, but more less than more, I might say. It's like it's undersampled. So it's just a prime target for somebody to go there and explore it, document it. Even just taking pictures is good documentation, because we can talk more if you wish about the changes that occur there, the geologic changes. Then that's all about the natural history aspect of it. But of course, for radio operation, for ham radio operation, because it's so hard to get there and so expensive that almost always there's nobody there. And the last radio activation was our expedition in 1997. It was VK0IR. And so we had a team there of 20 guys. We set a world record for the number of QSOs at that time. It's since been eclipsed very, very much. But in the DXing world, in the amateur radio world, it's attractive because it's so difficult. And that's true both for the natural history and also for the radio science.
Yes, it's been, 1997 is the last DXpedition year, I think.
Yes.
Right? And then there was one in 1983. Was that the only two times people have been there?
No, there's been quite a few ham radio operators on Heard Island, but the major DXpeditions, there were two groups there in 1983. One of them was Jim Smith, VK9NS, and his wife Kirsty. There was another group, and then there's probably been about 25 or 30 ham radio operators on the island, but only the 1983 and our 1997 expeditions, and now this one, the VK0EK, are serious about a major radio operation that has a chance of giving DXers a contact with this extremely rare location, and so it's a big effort. And there are not many of those expeditions there. More scientific expeditions, actually, than radio expeditions.
Now, you've your team is all together, my understanding. You've got all the people you need, right?
Yes, that's right. We're going to use a very well-known vessel called the Braveheart. It's made many Southern Ocean expeditions, including it'll be 12 radio expeditions that they have done. Ours will be number 13. So they're very well prepared to do that. And we're very lucky to have them because they provide a lot of support for the project. They will help us land, help us set up, help us tear down, be on standby right there on the island when we need help, and also to transport us to the opposite side of the island to go on with the exploration and also operating radio from over there. The boat carries 14 team members. There are 14 of us, and then there is a crew of 5. And so it's not as big a team as we had hoped, but this is part of the reality of what you can do getting to Heard Island.
Well, let me get David in here for a second because this guy needs to take a vacation. David needs to get out and go somewhere. He works hard all the time. I do know that he and his brother Matt have experience flying drones. They're good drone pilots. So if you've got an opening there, we'll get David to go down with you guys. David, you think you could take some time off if we can arrange to get you down near the South Pole?
I don't know. I don't know if the world could take me being gone for a while.
Tom, let me answer that question. At this moment, we have a full team, but things do happen. In 1997, one person, right at the end, as we were on our way, one person had to return because of business commitments, and so we were one person down from what we thought. I would be very pleased to have David or anybody else who felt that they might be in a position to join us if the opportunity arose. I don't want to be corny and call this a waiting list or a standby list, but that's kind of what it is. If there's anybody who would have interest, I would be delighted to know about them and keep them here on my front list, just in case there's an emergency. People do have emergencies and can't go, and I would like to have the opportunity to put somebody in if that requirement arose, and I knew of somebody who could step in and do it safely and fulfill the requirements.
Well, I tell you, Bob, go ahead. You can put my name on the list, and but put me way down on the bottom of the list, because I tell you, I spent 2 weeks in a Arctic survival school in the Air Force, and so I know what it's like to sleep in the ice and the cold and stuff. I don't think I'd want to do it at this age right now. But, there's so much to talk about here. I don't think there's going to be enough time today to get all this, but we're just getting started. There's really a lot of issues, aren't there, that you have to go through. I mean, hey, people don't know things, but I know I've heard of one DXpedition. They had all their radio equipment and all their stuff on a ship going somewhere, and the ship sunk. I mean, do you know the one I'm talking about?
Well, I hate to even think about things like that. I think the probability of such a catastrophic failure is low. We do have a procedure. By we, I mean Cordell Expeditions, my group, and the expeditions that we've done. We have a procedure which is called sort of what ifs, and we try and imagine everything that can possibly go wrong. And that translates into plans, backup procedures, and so on. By and large, in fact, we have never had a major medical issue on any of my expeditions. All of the expeditions have been successes, and so that procedure, I think, is pretty effective. You do at the lab where I worked, we call that black hatting. You try and imagine what goes wrong with it, and that is pretty effective in eliminating problems. I don't think we're going to have a problem on this expedition, but you never can tell. So there is a certain risk, and it's not for everybody.
Okay. Hey, why don't we give a plug to your newsletter? We put a link to your newsletter in our email we sent out, but a lot of people may not know about it. So where can they go to get more information about Heard Island? Well,
in fact, if you like, I'll bring up a web page. Our web page here. Our website is called heardisland.org. Heardisland.org, and there you can find a link that goes to the newsletter. And if you like, I'll just show you what this page looks like.
And Bob, I think you've got some pictures you want to talk about, and maybe a presentation. If you want to just jump into that, man, I'm just excited talking to you here.
I don't want to hog it, but okay, you should see that web page now.
Yes.
So that's on our regular website, heardisland.org, and if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you just enter your email address down here and say, yes, send me the Heard Island newsletter. We don't print it and don't mail it out. It's electronic only. It's a PDF file, and you'll get it. We do it irregularly, maybe every couple of weeks or so, and the newsletter contains not really news. It's not announcements of something specific. It's kind of the inside backroom story on the work that we're doing, the plans, the evolving designs, that sort of thing. So a lot of people find this newsletter more interesting than just news. There is a link. Now here's the home page for the website, and right here is a link for news. So here is our news, and you can scroll down and see some various news items. And here's the news item that we're talking about right now. This was the news release on this interview here. Here is our homepage, and here's another link, for instance, on sponsors. You can see who is supporting the project. A lot of organizations, a lot of people. Down here under, if you want to donate $100 or more, your name goes up here within hours after you do it, and so on. So people can go look at that and sign up for the newsletter if you wish.
So, Bob, how are you doing on funding? I mean, a DXpedition like this will cost $500,000 to put it on, won't it?
Yeah, it will. When it's all over, it'll be about that. We are in very good shape. That is projecting the income that we feel is reliable, shall we say, guaranteed. For instance, the final staged payments by the team members, and then projecting a certain amount of income from the QSL cards and so on. We think, we believe, we project that the expedition can be paid for, even at that high value number. It's like $500,000. So it's a success. But we haven't raised all that money yet, so we're still happy to accept people's donations on it. And you can see information on the website about that. But we're in good shape financially, assuming that the things we're counting on do come to pass.
Yeah, and you're going to make, you hope to make, 100,000 contacts. I saw somewhere in the article that it costs just a little under $5 per contact that you make.
Yeah, that number is calculated by saying how much did the total expedition cost and how many contacts were made. And so if you divide, it's about $5 per contact if we make 100,000. Now, we might make more than that, or we might make less than that. We just don't know. Last time in 1997, we made 80,000. That was a new record. Nowadays, the technology, the antenna design, the propagation predictions, the radios, the procedures, and so on have all evolved. They're all better. So we're hoping to make more. What's more important than the number of contacts, more important to us than just the number of contacts, is how many first-time contacts we make, how many all-time new ones. So let's say there's a DXer who does not have Heard Island in his log, and I spoke with one person this morning on the phone for whom it's his last of all of them. It completes all of them, but he needs Heard Island. Those are the people that we really hope, and we're going to work hard to get those people in the log, because it may be another 20 years or maybe never before there's another radio team on Heard Island.
Okay, hey, this might be a good point for me to mention. You were talking about people that needed it or worked it. I got an email, or not an email, but this was posted in one of the groups today. David Mose, he says, I wasn't a ham for the last Heard Island DXpedition, but I've read the book, VK0IR, Heard Island by Robert Schmieder KK6EK. He said it's a fantastic book. He says he's looking forward to watching tonight, so we'll say hi to David Mose on here. And let me just shout out to Doug Neeson. He worked with Bob for 5 years on the Cordell Bank expedition. Great leader, great scientist, Doug said. So I bet you Doug's watching too. So back to you, Bob, and any presentation pictures, you've got it there.
Okay, well let me go back to my screen. You should see now the website again. And now here's a link called Documents.
Or, no, wait a minute, I'm not seeing that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't start it. There we go. Now you should see it.
Yes.
Okay, here is a link on the main website. I'll go back to, there's the home page on the main website, and here is a link called Documents. There is a full project description of the latest version. It's about 100 pages long. You find a lot of interesting information about what we're trying to do. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom here, there is an image of the VK0IR book from 1997. And you can click on that and download the entire book. I simply scanned the book, no cost of any kind, just download it and you can read it. And I hope you'll enjoy it. And not only that, but down below here are the scoping document and the planning documents for that expedition. Now, these are 19 years ago, 18, 19 years ago, but you'll see the detail to which a project like this has to be done in order to succeed and in order to make it safe. We're in the process of developing the planning document, essentially the team's handbook, the participants' handbook, which will be equivalent to these here. We're developing that right now for the 2016 DXpedition. So a lot more information for anybody who really wants to download documents there.
Okay.
Now I can show you more images of things if you
sure,
care.
Let's look at some images.
Your questions or whatever you like.
We got plenty of time. Hey, here's let me see. Here's a question. Actually, it wasn't a question.
Okay.
KC5 UUS is quoting something here. Now, you as a scientist, you can confirm or deny this.
Okay.
It says the South Pole is on average 40 degrees colder than the North Pole. Is that true or false?
I think that's probably true. I don't think I could guarantee 40 degrees as precisely, but yeah, I think it's colder. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Significantly. Typically, the temperature there is minus 40 or
okay.
minus 50 or 60 centigrade.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Go ahead with your pictures, and I'll just be
okay.
Kind of looking through the chat room here.
Okay. Let me bring over a couple of pictures now. Are you still seeing my screen?
I am. Let me switch to it. There we go.
All right. So let me bring up. Now some of these I will have to sort of scale up. Here's a photograph of Big Ben, the volcano, in the background, 9,000 feet high, and these buildings were put there in 1947 by the Australian government. They had a scientific expedition that was there for 5 or 6 years, and when we were there in 97, some of those buildings were still there, but most of them had been blown away, and by now, almost virtually all of that is gone, so it's nothing but debris. Here are some of the penguins. I'll just go through a few of these pictures so you see a few images of Heard Island. Here's some of the king penguins.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to expand
okay.
these in some cases. This area up here is called the Lawrence Peninsula, and this is sort of the other end of this beach is where we will land and set up our main camp. But we'll be able to walk over here and walk on this very narrow isthmus and get over onto this area, which is not the main area. This is not the main volcano. It's sort of an embolism on the island, but it's extremely interesting because it's very little sampled, undersampled. We have a graduate student in geology at the University of Tasmania who wants rocks from up here, rock samples. So we're going to be studying the geology in that area, and I'm personally going to be walking around here trying to locate and pick up specimens or samples that might contain previously unknown species of plants and animals. That's one of our goals. So let me now on the other end of the island is this is sort of the beach there, and these white dots are shelters that were put there by the Australian government sometime after 2003, and they are still there. So this is not going to be our main camp, but it'll be a place that we can come to for about a week during the 3 weeks that we're there. And during about a week, we're going to go over to this area. We'll use those shelters as our camp, set up the radios, the antennas up on this ridge, and from there, we'll be able to branch out and do exploration of the area. Let me bring up this image. So if you can see my mouse, those shelters are right in this area here. This is the easternmost tip of Heard Island. To the left is the volcano, goes up to 9,000 feet. To the right, this is the end of the island. And right there is where we will be able to set up our camp. And from there, we'll be able to go around and explore. And in particular, this thing that looks like a lake, it's actually called a tarn, T-A-R-N, is really very interesting because it's exhibiting evidence of geologic changes since the last research group was there. So part of what we want to do is take our boat, go over here, land up here, walk down, and take pictures of this area and document the geologic changes. There's a stream here. I think I've got let me show you an expansion of that. Look at that. This is a rock fall that occurred in 2008, and apparently it blocked off meltwater. So there's an underground stream here, and it's spewing out here. That's a plume of about 100 feet long. So that's a really violent plume. It's the kind of plume that comes off of a dam.
Could that be caused by, the earthquake? I mean, the volcano venting or anything?
Not a lava vent, but it could very well be caused by earth movements, seismic movements associated with the changes internally in the volcano, because it is erupting, it moves around, and there's thermal stresses. So it's also possible that this rock fall was just weathering. It hung out there and finally broke off. But the net result is that there's this plume of water going into this lake or tarn, and then it goes out. It drains out here, but there's apparently a subsurface opening, and this water drains out so that, let me go back to, here's another image. This, just below the end of this picture is that lake or tarn, and this stream comes out, but over half of its distance, and that's a couple hundred feet, it's underground. So in other words, we have discovered, these are discoveries that we've made studying the satellite images that are taken most recently in 2014. These satellite images are showing us the dynamics of Heard Island. And it's changing. It changes very rapidly. Some of the glaciers are retreating at the rate of 100 meters per year. That's phenomenal rate. So a good part of the interest in going there has to do with exploring, documenting, describing what the state is, and then putting that together with historic observations to get a better idea of what in the world is happening at Heard Island. While all of that is happening, I've given you a lot of words about that, but while all of that is happening, the radio team will be up here and on the other end of the island at Atlas Cove, operating radio and logging contacts for DXers. There, that was kind of a long speech there. I can pause and take a
comments from the chat room are talking about the beautiful pictures. I think it's very impressive.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the radio team a little bit.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. What equipment is it that they're going to be operating off of?
Well, the radio team. We have altogether only 14 people. Everyone has a radio license, but some of them, 2 of them in particular, are principally going to Heard Island to do this kind of scientific documentation. So they will use part of their time to do the radio operation. The rest of the team is going to be plugged strongly into that. So our main camp will be at Atlas Cove, which is at the northwest end. And let me bring up a picture. This is where we will come in from the main vessel, and we'll land here on this beach. It's a very long, shallow beach. And right here is where the ruins of that Australian research station were in 1947. So this is where we established the camp in 1997 for VK0IR. And this is now an image, sort of a drawing. It's not exact, and it's not exactly to scale, but it's more or less where it will be and more or less what it will look like when we set up our main camp there. And these will be our shelters. We might establish some 4-square vertical arrays out here. It's a big flood plain, so it's got salt water in front of us. Let me bring up an image of what our shelters look like. These are these are tents. Believe it or not, these are blow-up tents. These are inflatable tents. The tents are not themselves not inflatable, but you see these rings. Those are like inner tubes. And so what you do is you roll this shelter out on the ground. You connect an air compressor, and 10 minutes later, these shelters are erected and ready for occupancy. So that's a really important safety issue. We may have very bad weather. It may be windy and rainy, and so if we tried to assemble some complex structures, for instance, as we did in 1997, and it's really windy. In 97, we had wonderful calm days. It was very lucky. If we're not so lucky this time, it's entirely possible that some of those things could blow away and we couldn't put up our shelters. So that's a safety issue. So the company that manufactures these shelters, called HDT Global, they make them for military customers worldwide. They are military rated. They're used by armies all over the place, and they are super strong, and they go up really fast. And this company is partnering with us. They've made available 2 of these plus another shelter at no charge to us. They're lending them to us. So it's really a major advantage for this project. So here in the drawing, I filled it with a bunch of working tables. This is just sort of symbolic. It's not actually necessarily where we'll put these tables and store things. One of these shelters will be a dormitory where we'll sleep. We'll have 16 bunks. That's for 14 team members maximum, plus maybe 2 visitors. The other shelter will be the working area. I like to call it a GEM tent, G-E-M. That means greeting, eating, and meeting tent. And shall I joke that these handsome guys, that's us, right? That's all these.
They look nice and warm and toasty.
Oh yeah, that's where the way it's going to be. So this will be our main shelter. From that, we can get out and we can walk around and adjust the antennas and so on. Let me show you another picture. It's similar. Here are our main shelters. The Australians installed 2 shelters here. These are actually water tanks, manufactured as water tanks. They are permanently there. They're refuges, and we'll be able to use those. So what we're essaying to do is one of them is set up as a galley, so we can cook our meals there. It's got a stove top and an oven and preparation surfaces. The other has a table where we can sit and eat. We're essaying to deploy a group of instruments that potentially could be contacted, would remotely be controllable, and would report environmental sensing data and possibly radio data and things like that. So this is kind of the main camp that we'll be establishing, surrounded by the various antennas. We're favoring verticals and vertical 4-square arrays because we're down low. We have salt water right in front of us, and it's a pretty proven configuration. Rather than Yagis, we would have to bring the Yagis up on the hill and up in the air higher. So we're opting for all vertical antennas. The radios will be Elecraft K3Ss, and with maybe more than one kind of amplifier. Other than that, they're pretty conventional DXpedition radio gear. Of course, every radio has a computer. Computers are all linked together with Wi-Fi. One of those computers talks to our satellite terminal. It'll be Inmarsat, probably. Could be Iridium. and uploads data from us on a continuous basis. And when you'd like, we could talk about the real-time uploading of data. But other than the connection through the satellite and the real-time connection with uploading data, this is a fairly standard configuration. It's just that our shelters are new and different for DXpeditions, and being able to take advantage of the Australians' refuge shelters is a big advantage for us.
What bands are you going to be working there?
We're going to work all the bands that we can. We're going to concentrate on, shall we call them the money bands initially? If it's 20 meters, 15 meters, 40 meters. The reason for concentrating on those is so that we can log as many all-time new ones, give people the opportunity to get one at least contact. And as time goes on, we'll be there most of 3 weeks, operating most of 3 weeks. So as time goes on, we'll branch out to the other bands. We'll have hardware available to work all bands, except that we're believing that 10 meters is going to be pretty poor, so we're not taking that too seriously, and probably no 6 meters at all. Other than that, we should be ready on everything, but we're going to sequence it to optimize the chances for people to get what they want from this operation.
You know, did you have something, David?
I was just going to ask, it's as a field day people, we all know how to work, 24 hours off the grid. But 3 weeks, how do you overcome dealing with having no external power for that long? What's are you doing? Generators, solar, wind, all of the above?
Yeah, well, we'll have quite an inventory of generators. In '97, we had about 35 kilowatts of electric power at this location. We'll have as many generators as we need to operate as many radios as we need. Typically, we might have 4 stations operating at any given time. So the power requirements are not too terribly high. We're not going to depend on solar. It'll be generators, hardwire the power in.
One of the things I didn't realize, but I read about, and I think you guys are taking steps to prevent this, but I didn't know that pirates were making contacts with the expedition calls. In other words, they're getting on there and making contacts, and people think they're working the DXpedition, and they're not. So what are you guys doing to ensure that people know that they've really got you?
Well, I appreciate the question very much. So shall I give a short description of
Sure.
DXA then?
Yeah, go right ahead.
In 2005, we created an application called DXA. I think many people are familiar with it now, and probably many of the hams, the DXers listening, actually used it or watched it from Curry, K7C, Curry Atoll in 2005. We used it again on Clipperton 2 years ago, 2013. DXA is merely a web page. You're going to go to a URL. It's going to be on dxa3.org, but you'll be able to find it easily. It's merely a web page, and there's nothing you do except bring it up and leave it up on your screen and watch it. What it does is it presents an image, a map of the Earth, and some basic data to update each minute. Once a minute, it's updated with those stations that we have just logged in the past minute. So let's say that you make a contact with us and we log you. Within 1 minute, you'll see the web page in your browser and your computer update with your call sign and your QTH. And that will confirm for you that you are safely in our log and you don't need to make a duplicate contact. But then, Tom, you asked about pirates. How does that work? Well, if inadvertently there was a pirate there and you worked the pirate, you would not see the confirmation on that DXA page. You would not get your confirmation, and therefore you would know something is wrong. You may not know exactly what's wrong, but if you don't get your confirmation within a minute, you should make another contact. That's the signal that says make another contact. So following that procedure, it's absolutely impossible for a pirate to get in and siphon off contacts and ruin the event for somebody, because we give you 1 minute warning. Whoops, it didn't work. Make another contact. And so DXA eliminates pirates altogether. Let me see if I can bring up an image of DXA, the web page. You can see it on our website, and
is DXA one of your creations, Bob?
Yes, that's right. I wrote the original, and then I turned it over to Pete W60P, who is a real professional programmer, and he has just done a wonderful job of bringing it up to modern standards. You should be able to see an image. This is now a slide in a PowerPoint presentation, but you should be able to see this. And there's a simulation running online. You see the URL at the bottom of the screen. If you go there, you can see this simulation running in real time. Every minute it gets updated, so you can get a feeling of how it works. But this will be on a different URL when we actually get active. The main thing is this map, the azimuthal map. So Heard Island is at the center, and these are the stations that were logged in the last 1 minute. And this list over here reproduces this list. It's redundant. So, for instance, you can look here and see XE2S on this list, and you can look down here and see XE2XS, but he is in the location. This little flag is in his QTH. We look up your lat/lon and put that flag on your QTH. So every minute this gets updated, and in fact, I could probably bring up the live simulation. So I'm going to do that right now and see if conceivably it's still running. Pete is working on this, so it's possible it's down temporarily, but here is the simulation. Okay, so now I'll bring this up full screen. It doesn't fill full screen, so maybe I'll just bring it back down again. This is what you will see when you log in, and you can log in right now. There it is, dxa2.org/dxa3.dev development. And this will now update in 34 seconds. So as we watch this, you'll see this update automatically. There's nothing you have to do except watch this. This list will be moved over to the right. The just logged list will be moved over to the worked list, and it will update it. So we're 15 seconds away. So keep your eye on this if you want to, and you'll see it suddenly change.
So this might be a good tool to also see where your signal is going and seeing if it's
Indeed.
getting ready to be in your area.
Did you see it update? And now the first list is over on the right here. That's a cumulative list. It's a new set of flags. Those are the stations that we logged in the last 1 minute. Of course, this is a simulation, but this is what it will look like. And so we really advise you to bring this up when you're trying to work us. Bring this up and watch it. You can see who we're working. We can see who we're working. It's really very, very useful tool. This thing right here in the lower left side is a place you can log in with your call sign or any call sign. And for those QSOs, those stations that have been logged, that are safely in the VK0EK log, will light up a green square. We call those a greenie. Okay? So this person, W1AW, in this simulation, this station, has safely logged. We have these stations like 15 meters sideband, 17 meters CW, and so on. And you can get confirmation of your log. This is the online log server, but it's graphically presented. It's exactly the online log server, and we are working on right now the ability for you to say click on this part of the graphic and order up QSL cards if you want. So this will be somewhat interactive. Right here is a link like order QSLs. You'll also be able to click on here and send an email message of some kind to the expedition, to us on site. We won't be able to go through every last email that we get, but we're going to have help in processing all these. So we want you to feel like you have the ability to give us a message. So there's various features on this. How much time remaining on the island? How many queues have we logged total? 106,000 according to this. Again, it's just a simulation. And here are the bands and modes that would be active at any given time. That's so if you want to get us on the 17 meter CW, you can see that on this simulation that's not active. We're not listening there, so you don't want to go there.
That is so cool. I mean, there's no doubt where you're going to be. You look at this real time thing; it tells you what band and the mode you're operating. Let me ask another question.
Sure.
I think that you guys aren't you going to set up two different camps? And maybe the purpose of that is one part of the island favors the United States, and maybe one part of the island favors Europe or something. Talk a little about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let me see if I've got that map here. I may not have that. Okay, let me bring up this. Right here, if you can see my cursor, right here in the northwestern corner, that's called Atlas Cove. That's where the main camp is. And those are the images I showed you before, at least part of them. Here's the peninsula that we want to go out and explore. And most of the operation will be conducted from there. And this location can see every place in the world except the central U.S. and the west coast of the U.S. And the problem is, here is Big Bend, the volcano, 9,000 foot mountain right in the way. From here, right through this way to the southeast, down in the lower right-hand side is California. So it's very poor propagation to there, but we have a lot of really good supporters from there. We want to make a contact. So what we're planning, what we will do is we will, during part of the time, the vessel will carry part of the team over here and land us here. We'll set up the radios here. This works because from here, going in that direction, we have a straight shot to the west coast and the central North America. So we'll give some preference to that. And from here, we also see JA and VK and ZLs and so on. So by operating on these two locations, we will have straight propagation shots to every place in the world. This area down here in the south called Long Beach, we're not going to set up a radio there. There's no need. These two places are sufficient, but scientifically that area is interesting. So if we have the time and resources, we're going to land there and search for unknown species, but no radio operation from there.
Okay, great.
Will both stations be active at the same time, or you're packing stuff up and taking it to the other side?
No, that's a really good question, and the answer is the former. We'll have enough operators and equipment that we'll leave. The station at Atlas Cove will continue working, but for maybe 1 week, we'll send, say, 2 operators and two science people over to Spit Bay over here. And so then we'll have Atlas Cove and Spit Bay operating simultaneously. But Spit Bay will concentrate or give preference to priority to West Coast and Central North America. They'll call for that to compensate for the inadequate propagation from Atlas Cove.
So how are you able to determine propagation this far off? Because we're talking about March is when you're going to have the DXpedition.
Well, we have several just absolute experts in propagation. Dean is one of them, and he has developed a program that involves terrain. It's called HFTA. It includes the terrain as part of the propagation computations. So with those simulations, that guides us to designing the antennas, setting the antennas, and operating for both Atlas Cove and Spit Bay. So I think we're using state-of-the-art propagation simulation codes. It's being done by partners who are not going. There's several people who are contributing to that, but I think we're on pretty good ground. Here's another image of how it goes. So from Atlas Cove, we can see out these directions, but from Spit Bay, we can see to North America, west and central. And the simulations account for the mountain being in the way. In fact, here, I think it's just the previous one. Here is a simulation. This is not a precisely calculated simulation, but here is the mountain in the way, and this is what it does to the signal. And so that's why we need to move and set up a station at the other end of the island in order to avoid the mountain just absorbing our signal from there. Okay.
I'll throw out another ID since it's the top of the hour. This is WTWW, Lebanon, Tennessee, United States of America. This is all really, really neat. Neat sounding. I wish you guys the best of luck there. One question I would have for you is, what do you expect to, or no, what are you expecting to do better than you did the last time that you were there? Or what are you looking forward to being able to do again on this expedition that you might not have been able to last time?
Well, it's a wonderful question. First of all, we hope to log people who do not have a contact with Heard Island. It's been almost 20 years, so there's a whole generation of DXers, and a lot of the old-timers missed it at that time. So we're really very keen on filling those slots so that as many people as possible have at least one contact. That's kind of priority. In 1997, we just logged everybody we could get and didn't worry about it too much. But there's so much more activity, especially with things like the ARRL challenge, where everybody wants many band modes. That's a legitimate activity, but we kind of feel that getting your first contact with Heard Island is more important than getting 12 or 15 band mode contacts with Heard Island. That number one, that first one, is really important. That drives us to activate both ends of the island, as you see on this graphic at the moment. It's really to reach all areas of the world so that people can get the first contact. After that, for the radio operation, I think it's responding to what people want. People want to fill out their band modes, and we're going to do the best we can. We're hoping that people who do not need, let's just pick on one, say 40 meter CW. Maybe you've got Heard Island on 40 meter CW. If you were able to let somebody else have that slot, and remember, we have only a finite number of contacts that we can make. If you felt good enough that you would let somebody else get their first contact and just stand by, that would really be a very, very excellent result. And we're hoping that that the audience out there, the DXing community, we don't like to talk about them really as audience. We kind of view the DXers at home trying to work us and us on the island. We are all one team. We're after the same thing. It's a confirmed contact for your call sign in the log, followed up by the confirmation. We'd like to feel we're wanting to encourage the spirit that everyone is working together to help everyone else get as what they want and what they need. That's not necessarily different from other DXpeditions. I think most of the major DXpeditions have that as a goal. We certainly do. For us, it's a physical challenge because getting there is hard, living there is hard. We think maybe one of the easier things will be once we get all the radios set up, it's going to be easy and fun, easy propagation withstanding, but it's going to be fun actually logging the contacts and confirming them. Okay.
You said that you had some amplifiers. How much power are you going to be running?
We're going to run the legal limit, which is 400 watts. We cannot operate more than that. That's the legal limit, and we obey all of the rules and regulations as stipulated in the permit. The permit comes from the Australian Antarctic Division and from the equivalent of the FCC in the U.S., but of the Australian ACMA. So we have a radio permit, and we will have a landing permit, and we will operate absolutely within the constraints of all of those.
The DXpedition is going to, on Heard Island is going to last, I think, 21 days is your plan, but the overall trip from start to finish takes you something like, 40, 45 days?
Yeah, it's about 10 days to get there. We're going to leave from Cape Town. Let me see if I can pull up the map to show you where we're going. Here it is. We're going to leave from Cape Town, South Africa, go east, and that's advantageous because the wind and the sea is behind us. It's on our stern, and then drop down past Kerguelen to Heard Island. And then when we finish, we'll get up and go further east to Fremantle, which is next to Perth, Australia. And so, boy, it's a lot better than if we were going the opposite way. The Amsterdam guys went out of Perth, that's down here at Fremantle, and went to the west and then turned around and came back. So over half of their trip, they had to buck high winds and high seas. We will have to do that as well, but at least we're going downhill on it. It's about 10 days from Cape Town to Heard Island. It's about 10 days from Heard Island to Fremantle. There's 20 if we're at Heard Island for nominally 21 days, but that's not precise. It's going to depend on the weather, on operations, and so on. But it's more than 40 days. That's correct.
Yeah, you had mentioned that you're going to separate, I think, the group into two parts, so you can work, different parts of the world.
Yep.
Hey, how does the compass work down here? I mean, you're only 1,000 miles from the South Pole. I mean, does the compass work pretty good down there?
The compass works fine. We're pretty far from the magnetic pole. The geographic pole and the magnetic pole are really separated by quite a lot. But the compass will work fine. On this map, the magnetic pole is up here somewhere. It's away from the South Pole, and we're down here. We're at 53 degrees south. The magnetic pole is at whatever it is, 5 or 10 degrees south. 85 or 90 degrees south. So compass would work fine, but we're not going to depend on compass. We'll have GPS, and so we'll know where we are with GPS coordinates.
So why do you guys stop at Heard Island? Why didn't you go all the way on down there? Get down to Antarctica.
South Pole?
Yeah, let's go on down there.
Well, first of all, there are a lot of people already going to Antarctica and the South Pole, but for radio operations, Antarctica is not nearly as rare and as desired because there are so many people down there.
Right.
On an ongoing basis. Heard Island is so isolated. It's 1,000 miles from Antarctica. It's not in an area where there's traffic, ship traffic. If you look again, showing this on this map, here is the Antarctic Peninsula, and it lifts up here, reaches up to Tierra del Fuego, the southern tip of South America. So there's a lot of traffic, a lot of tourist traffic, and therefore a lot of ships that come out of the Falklands, out of South America, out of Chile in particular, from Tierra del Fuego, down in this area as tourists. And as a result, it's much easier to find a ship to take you, say, to South Georgia than it would be to find a ship that'll take you to Heard Island, which is on the opposite side of Antarctica. It's over here, and there's nothing near there except Kerguelen. Now, Kerguelen is the French island. Kerguelen is serviced by the French government from Reunion Island, which is farther north, up about the latitude of India, and they service it with one very large ship called the Marion Dufresne, and that's the ship we took in 1997 to get to Heard Island. It just came down from Reunion, dropped us at Heard Island, and took us home. That ship is not available any longer. They've changed the scheduling, the program of that, and so the ship is not available. And we had to find another boat, another vessel that we could charter, that we could afford to charter, and it's very expensive to charter boats. Last time in '97, we were just passengers on the Marion Dufresne. This time we have to charter the boat. Smaller boat, but we have to charter it.
Now, will a boat remain with you guys anchored off the coast in here during this 21 days?
Yes, and that's really important. It's really valuable. Their crew is essentially an extension of our crew. They on their other expeditions, they provide so much support, landing, picking up, transferring cargo back and forth. They will even cook food and bring it to us to the extent that it can be done. But it's really important for safety. It's critical. We had a previous agreement with a boat, but when they refused to stay with us, I dropped them. We could not have a boat that was not with us the entire time, but the Braveheart will be, and it's very, very important for safety, as well as the operations of moving around the island.
So I was reading about the latest doctor. You've now put a doctor on your roster. I think he practiced emergency medicine mostly. Yeah. So if a guy had to have his appendix taken out there, is this guy going to be able to do it on site?
I don't want to speak for Arliss. It's Arliss Thompson, W7XU. We're delighted to have Arliss. What happened was when we had to shift vessels from the previous one that presented us with an unsafe scenario, we lost 2 people off of the team who could not shift the schedule. It changed from November, December this year to March, April next year. 2 of our team members cannot go then. We were able to fill one, and then in this past month, we were delighted and lucky, I think, to add Arliss to the team. Arliss has formal education in biological sciences. He has a wide range of experiences on very challenging worldwide expeditions, field science, and he's an emergency room doctor. So we're thrilled to have him.
So let's talk about the emergency aspect here again. If a person really has some type of heart attack or something, and you got to get him out of there, surely you probably wouldn't take him back on the ship. I mean, is there somebody else that can come in here for you guys? Do you have insurance for transportation or backup transportation?
We will have insurance. It's required. We'll have insurance, but the mechanics of that may may eclipse any kind of insurance that you might have. And so there's a whole range of scenarios that could happen. And we have developed a very extensive, it's called a risk management plan. What are the possible things that can go wrong? These are like the what ifs. What can go wrong? And medical is an important part of that. So what if somebody does have appendicitis, or has a tooth that is just driving him crazy, or has a heart attack, or simply drops dead? We're considering all of those scenarios, as well as what if somebody gets a cut or a minor burn? What do we do? How do we respond? So there's this whole spectrum of possible events that occur. The best we can do is to be prepared in terms of leadership. That is, it's my responsibility as expedition leader to be able to direct the decisions and the actions of what to do. If we have a situation that's a major medical, my important function is to turn it over to the doctor and let the doctor then manage that situation. If that person has died, we have to make a decision. Do we terminate the operation and sail home with his body, or do we carry on? Generally, expeditions like this carry on. That's generally the decision on a fatality. We're going to do our best to avoid that event by we're going to have medical screening and medical exams before we go. We're going to do our best to be in good physical shape and so on, so nobody is, to our knowledge, nobody is going with a terrible illness. He's not terminally ill in some way. The whole spectrum of smaller, less threatening, less acute problems have to be managed on site. What if somebody breaks a finger or breaks a leg? Well, or what happened in one case on VK0IR in 1997, the wind caught a wooden crate and knocked one of our team members' shoulder, dislocated his shoulder. But the doctor on the team was able to reduce that, reset it, and so he was able to go on functioning. We'll have a whole range of those things. Ultimately, I have to remind people this is an expedition. It's not a novel we're reading, or it's not going to a movie. It's an expedition. There are risks. Things can happen. Things can go wrong. We're working as hard as we can, and I think it's really quite adequate. I've done expeditions for 35 years, and the preparation for this one is better than any we've ever done before. So insurance is fine, but we have to manage the situations on site in real time, and I think we're going to be prepared to do that. We're prepared to a great extent now, but we will be fully prepared by the time we sail.
Well, it sounds like you have a good long list of risks that might happen. Now, I probably have one that you don't have on your list. Do you have on there anything about getting bit by a rabid penguin?
Well, as a matter of fact, yes.
And are you allowed to slap it if it does bite you?
Well, now that is a really good question. I don't know about that. Okay, so I'm going to bring up, here is our risk management plan. Now I'm just going to scroll down. These are all the kinds of things that can happen and what we're going to do about them. So here is categories. Here's a hazard that can occur. Here's the cause of the event, the consequence, how we will respond, and how we can mitigate or prevent that problem. And down here somewhere is probably an animal bite. Yeah, it's probably under medical, health. Maybe this has been moved somewhere. Oh, I know. It's been moved because we're working on the environmental impact part of this. But animal bite, I don't think any of the penguins is going to be rabid, but animal bite is one of them. An elephant seal, if we were imprudent and an elephant seal bit somebody, We have we have to pay attention. We will have to pay attention to that because of the possibility of infection. So it's a good question.
I know that you said that you have to stay away from the animals and penguins and whatnot. But what happens if that herd migrates in your direction, and then now all of a sudden they're encircling your encampment?
Yeah, hey, just throw a little food out, after you get through eating.
That's an excellent question, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what the AAD would want us to do. That is, are we supposed to abandon our shelters, or are we supposed to bang pots and pans and scare them away? To be honest, you got me on that. I will have to get the answer to that. My guess is that it's not going to harm any of the animals to sort of bang on pots and pans and say, "Hey, please go away, go the other way," and they will. In 97,
are the penguins curious animals, or are they just tend to like, oh, it's a human, I'm just going to go in and stay over here?
They are not particularly curious. They stand in their clusters, their colonies, generally a quarter of a mile or a half a mile away from where our camp will be. Now let me bring up this other drawing of the camp. Here is our main camp, and over here is where elephant seals might be wallowing around in mud. Now, if they generally are not going to come up in this area, so we probably won't see any of them coming up here. But maybe they're curious. Maybe they lumber up here and nudge us up against an antenna or something. The penguins are going to be out here. This is called the Nullarbor. It's a big mud flat. No trees, Nullarbor. That's what it means. So we're not going to see the penguins coming around here investigating us. I don't think we're going to see any, or certainly not many, but probably not any elephant seals coming around. We will have some burrowing birds that live in this area, and we'll have a lot of seabirds that nest all over in this area. But I don't think we're going to have much problem.
Well, Bob, one of the questions in the chat room was, are you going to have any streaming video? And you already mentioned the fact that the communications cost is going to be really high to get connectivity there. Yeah. And you're hoping for a sponsor that's going to help you out with that. And if things work out right, we've talked about the 21 days you're down there having a live report back from you guys on our Tuesday night show, and we're hoping to bring some video back in on Tuesday nights.
Well, I'm glad to have the chance to give you a few words about that. Yes, the answer is yes. We are working on hoping, should we say, planning to have live video. I was looking for a chart here. Here it is. I can bring this up. Inmarsat, of course, as well as other companies, Iridium and so on, have constellations of communication satellites, and you can rent, and we have in the past. That's how we make DXA work. We just rent a terminal. We rent time on that terminal, and we upload the data. And on this, for this DXpedition, we're going to be downloading data as well. So it's going to be two ways. Inmarsat has a satellite which until June of this year was located here over the Atlantic Ocean, and it had only very marginal coverage at Heard Island. But in June they moved that satellite so that it's almost dead center on the Indian Ocean. That makes it almost dead center above Heard Island. So we will have a very direct shot with our terminal, and therefore very good coupling, propagation to that satellite. Now, Inmarsat has a new mode that they are just now developing. It's implemented. It's on its way. It's actually working, and it should work for us. It's called K-Alpha, and it's very high speed. It enables live video. Now, I don't know yet what the cost is. You can imagine the cost is going to be rather high. So I'm kind of, until we find out what the cost is going to be, I'm cautiously pessimistic. You know, we may have the hardware. It's possible Inmarsat is going to partner with us. We have talked with them over the past month or so. We're waiting for a decision. They may provide the hardware so that we could upload live video two-way from Heard Island. We can do that one way or another. We can do that, whether Inmarsat partners with us on the hardware or not. What we don't know is what it would cost to make that happen. So the, let's say, worst case or a bad case, an unhappy case would be, we have the hardware, we can do this, but we just can't afford to pay for the time, the satellite time. In which case, we would love to find an angel, someone who would make that possible. That would enable us to talk to you guys, and other people live from Heard Island. We could show you what we're doing. You could ask questions and things like that. So we're shall we say, cautiously optimistic. We're cautiously pessimistic at the same time. I'm not sure where I should put this, but it's feasible. It's technically very straightforward. All it's going to take is resources.
Anything here, David?
I think he's answered most of my questions, especially, you know, that was something I was thinking about was the penguins. You know, what if they come over to see it? You know, are they curious animals? But you know, he answered all of that, and he's probably got a contingency already down for it.
Oh yeah. Well, look, let's. We've talked a lot about Heard Island, man. We got a real scientist on here with us, and let's. I want to jump to another subject here. Is there? I want to jump to global warming.
Okay.
How's that for a ham radio discussion?